Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you can hear the buzzing noise in the background of this video, then it's my fan because it is hot. It's very hot and sunny outside, which means I am staying inside. And today I'll be talking about Pokemon, one of my favourite subjects. Pokemon was originally created in February 27th, 1996 by Satoshi Tajiri. He was inspired by his love for collecting insects. And then it obviously grew into the larger franchise that it is today. The animated series actually started in 1997, following the creation of Pokemon in 1996. Now, my favourite Pokemon has to be garDevoir, because she's absolutely amazing. I've actually nicknamed her Aphrodite because she's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at her. She can also learn an array of different moves: fire, psychic, lightning and fairy, which makes her quite an all-rounder. And she's also got very, very high special attack. This is her using mystical fire, psychic, thunderbolt. Oh, that's so cool. And last but never least, Moonblast. garDevoir can actually be either male or female. But I think garDevoir is female and should be just female. I've played her throughout all of the different games as well, and always try to catch a female Ralts to then evolve it into garDevoir. And look, I've even got a Funko Pop. I think it's called a Funko Pop. Yes, of her, unopened, and yeah. Isn't she adorable? So I thought that I'd quickly show a Pokemon card page of garDevoir's evolutionary cycle. So she starts off as Ralts, which is this adorable little creature here. So each Pokemon card can have different artwork. It can sometimes be sketches, other times it can be part of animation, I would say. She or he then evolves into Kirlia at level 20, which is this creature. She's actually inspired by, I think, don't quote me, but I think she's inspired by, or her design is inspired by ballerinas. And then Kirlia then evolves into garDevoir at level 30. Or with a Dawnstone, I think it is, he can then evolve into Gallade. And there is also Iron Valiant, which is a new Pokemon introduced in Violet and Scarlet. I think it's the mixture of both Gallade and garDevoir. I mean, look at it. It's got the blades, but then it's also got garDevoir's adorable head. It's got the stance of Gallade, but then it's got the kind of mostly the design of garDevoir. And I think that's really cool as well. Also, if you want a Gallade, the Kirlia has to be male, which I've never understood why that is. If you want a Gallade, the Kirlia has to be male, but if you leave it, it can still turn into garDevoir. So you can end up with a female garDevoir, you can end up with a male garDevoir if you want, but you then have to... The Gallade will always be male, basically, is what I was trying to say. I don't know why, though. There are actually 18 different elements that Pokemon can be, including they can be 2 types at once. So garDevoir is Psychic and Fairy. Although she did start out in the earlier games as just being Psychic, she's now, in the fairly recent games, Psychic and Fairy. There are countless others, obviously, like there are 1,025 different Pokemon species, which I just looked up on my iPad, which is obviously down there. With any Pokemon game that I have, I always try to get dual types throughout the whole of my party. So you can have 6 Pokemon on you at one time, and every one of them has to be 2 types, and no type can be the same. So for example, I've got garDevoir, which is Psychic and Fairy, Quackleval, which is Water and Fighting, Ceruledge, which is Fire and Ghost, Kingambit, which is Dark and Steel, Arboliver, which is Grass and Normal, Baxcalibur, which is Dragon and Ice. And each of the different Pokemon have different abilities as well. So garDevoir has Telepathy, which means the Pokemon anticipates and dodges the attacks of its allies. So if you're in a double battle, your other Pokemon doesn't hurt garDevoir with a move that maybe like Explosion or something, which can affect all the Pokemon around the Pokemon that's exploding, if that makes sense. Quackleval then has an ability called Torrent, which means she powers up water-type moves when the Pokemon's HP is low. So if you're in a battle, the Pokemon and her HP is low, then her water-type moves, which I don't currently have any water-types move on her. I don't know why. But when she knows like a water-type move, they'll be powered up. Ceruledge has Flash Fire, which basically means that it absorbs fire-type moves if a fire-type move is used on it, and then powers up its own fire-type moves, so it becomes even stronger. Kingambit has Defiant, which means if its attack stat or any other stat is lowered by an opposing Pokemon, its attack stat is then boosted sharply, but its attack stat is already very, very high as it is. So you can imagine it's quite a powerhouse in a Pokemon battle. Arboliver has Seed Sower, which means if it's attacked, then the terrain around it then becomes grassy terrain and then heals all of the Pokemon on the ground. Baxcalibur has Thermal Exchange, which boosts the attack stat when the Pokemon is hit by a fire-type move. The Pokemon also cannot be burned. I didn't know that, actually. That's really odd. Now, I've given myself the impossible mission of making my party without using garDevoir, which involves Hisuian Lilligant, who is both grass and fighting. I've nicknamed her Gazelle inspired from the character from Kingsman. Armor Rouge, which I think is the alternative, because you can get either 2 games of Scarlet or Violet, and I think on Scarlet you can get Armor Rouge, and then on Violet, or the other way around? Anyway, on Violet you can get Ceruledge, so they're very similar, but this one is Fire and Psychic instead of Fire and Ghost. And I've named her Rouge, because she's a little bit red. We then have Samurott, Hisuian Samurott, who is Water and Dark, and I've named her Coral Rot, because, I mean, the corals are rotting. Then we have Zoroark, or I think this is also Hisuian Zoroark as well, or Zoroark? I don't know. But she's normal and ghost, and I've named her Shadow, as in shadow, but spelt and said differently, because, well, she's a ghost. Then second to last, we've got goDevoir, who is still and dragon, and this is also Hisuian form as well. Usually like the shell part would be a little bit smaller. So I actually lied like a rug. goDevoir actually doesn't have a shell in its original form. It's actually described in Bulbapedia as having a large thick tail with a curled tip. So, yeah. And I've named her Gulag. I think mainly because, yeah, her kind of stats are quite high, and she's got shell armour. And last but never least, we have Cleaver, who is bug and rock. I've nicknamed her Size, which is the name given to the Japanese weapon that is traditionally featuring a main central prong and two shorter curved outer prongs. It was apparently used like by police, I think, in Okinawa? Perhaps Okinawa. Don't quote me. I'm, yeah, not fully educated on my history. My favourite Pokemon has to be, well, my next favourite after garDevoir, obviously, but my next favourite Pokemon has to be Lilligant. I mean, look at that face. How can you resist? She's so adorable. I probably loved Pokemon ever since I was younger. I can't actually remember the first one that I played. Probably Leaf Green. I think it was Leaf Green that I had. I think I was given it by a friend. And then it was Sapphire and Emerald that also were given to me by a friend. And yeah, so I've been playing it ever since. I'm 29 now and I will continue to play it. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next video.